We are back for series number 2 on the night of 6. As again, it's going to be a long night. We're going until about 1 a.m. Eastern local time. And Mount St. Mary's looking for revenge on Quinnipiac in last season's MAC tournament final. The Bobcats looking for a second straight ticket to the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am a big fan of Pyro. I think that he does a lot of good things for Quinnipiac. I think that squad as a whole is going to be very tough to beat. And I don't think that the revenge game is going to go the way that Mount St. Mary's thinks that it's going to go. But we'll see here. We did see the FF win for Quinnipiac to finish out the regular season, so we don't have too much of a preview like we did between the Akron Gold and Ball State squad matchup. But nonetheless, I hope that it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Both these teams, they've swept their way through, so they both have hit their stride at the right times, and now it's going to be an absolutely wonderful clash between these two teams.
I agree. It's going to be a tall order though for Mount St. Mary's to have to deal with Quinnipiac. That again, Quinnipiac had a 1-6 start, I think, to the year, or 1-6, 1-5 maybe. So they had a really rocky start to league play. I think they went 1-3 in the non-con, and they started their conference play 0-2. So it would have been 1-5. They lost to the newcomers of the league, Siena and Fairfield out of the MAC, and then were perfect ever since then. But now you play in the conference playoffs. Anything can happen as we know it, Somber, and it's one more order to get back to the tournament for a second straight season.
Yeah, they've been able to find a stride and bounce back here late season, and that's all that matters is how you finish. It's not about how you start. And they look ready to finish out the season strong in Quinnipiac, but Mount St. Mary's is going to be their last hurdle before they get to bracket play.
Well, the players are ready to go, Somber. Game 1, let's get down to the field. Quinnipiac takes on Mount St. Mary's. One more ticket to the tournament ready to be punched.
Going to be a fun one here. Quinnipiac always knows how to put on a show, as I feel like most people who have been following the CCS, this is going to be a heavily favored matchup to the Bobcats, but we'll see what Mount St. Mary's has in store. I personally have not been able to get too much ball tape on this Mount St. Mary's squad, so glad to see that the first time I get to catch them in action is during their conference championship here, and a possible seat in the bracket of top 64 as an upper seed and being able to win out their conference and finish out the season strong. But again, they have a tough task in front of them with Quinnipiac.
I got to watch this Mountaineers team play twice last season. Watched the semifinal game against, I don't remember who they played, and I watched the championship game against Quinnipiac. So I got to watch them play a couple times, and King Julian is the player to watch out for as far as I know for Mount St. Mary's. But it's been a minute since I've watched him SMU play, so I'm excited to see if there's any changes tonight. But Quinnipiac again coming in are heavy favorites.
Very much so, as Slugger does have a look on net, will find the post instead. It just skirts out. Pyro going to be able to put another shot out of a 50-50 off the sidewall. Slugger will go once more into the corner. The boost does get grabbed by King Julian. Played down below by Quinnipiac. Pyro on a solo play. Not enough boost to make the adjustment and find their way back to the backboard. Slugger will grab a few pads and find a shot, and it will rattle off, but back in front of Thwack as they knock that one home for goal number 1.
Slugger finds the assist, almost able to score that on his own right, and Black the right place at the right time. It's 1-0, 3:36 to go in game 1.
Looked like Slugger was just a bit too far behind on that Doomsy, but turns into probably the assist of the night here. I know we're still early on in this 6-game slate, but could very well be a contender for that. McHayden goes out of the corner. Thwack will go ahead and boom that one away. Pyro now has to retreat and play some defense on their own backboard. Takes possession and finds their way through with a big dunk. Buzz now down below for Mount St. Mary's with a flick to the central, but Slugger will be able to find a lane downfield. Touchdown pass, and it finds its way back into the hands of Slugger. The two-man play between Slugger and Thwack will find yet again another goal for the Bobcats.
3:06 to go, 2-0 as the Bobcats double their lead. And, Pyro talked a lot of talk going into this spring and what his expectations were going to be. Then, everybody kind of laughed at him after they started 1-5, and he kind of got a little bit of karma. But, since then, they've played very, very solid. Again, they have not lost since week number 4 when they started league play 0-2, and since then, they've been perfect.
And you love to see big bounce backs, and you also love to see that the trash talk and the banter can be backed up. And at the end of the day, collegiate is a better place with banter like that, and you know, set your expectations high and talk about how you're going to dominate and being able to back it up, and but having teams strive for. I know that when you come into especially league play scenarios, the team is talking a little bit of smack, and you are familiar opponents with them. It puts even that much more importance on a win, where you want to be the team that, you know, shuts down the opportunity to make them good on their word. As right now, Mount St. Mary's is having to deal with a lot of pressure and a lot of defense being played. And that one, the great save coming out from King Julian, but Quinnipiac from the jump have just been on the attack and unrelenting.
That thing happened. What car is that, by the way? For I think, is that a Zippy or what is that?
For I don't even know who's using it. Is it King Julian? No, he's in a Fennec. Well, I know someone's in a Ripper.
McHayden. Is that the Ripper?
I think so. I think he's out here rocking a Dominus hitbox with a Ripper and just going full throwback with it.
I haven't seen somebody play in a random car in a CCS game in a while, outside of watching Drexel troll Northeastern and the Scarab twice this season. But not very many times you see somebody whip out a car that's not an Octane Fennec or a Dominus.
You want to clown on the Scarab Ball, but Scarab Ball goes hard. Slugger with a great save off their own back line. King Julian to keep the attack alive. One more from McHayden. Fuzz down below does misflip, so it will be now an opportunity downfield for Quinnipiac. A little bit of a 50-50 in the skies, but Slugger will be able to regain possession here. To the ceiling they go, not able to find the reset. Pyro getting harassed down below, and Mount St. Mary's is able to make a favorable situation out of that. There's a big dunk on the goal line. Will find his way to Pyro. Muscles through one more and tries to play this one through their own corner. McHayden will find a 50. Slugger at the midfield to receive. They go low, but not able to maintain control on the ball. King Julian flings that one central. Pyro will be able to play a little bit patient and maintain possession throughout the most of this play. Finds their way off the sidewall. One more touch. Slugger on the pre-jump, and Quinnipiac feeling a little bit confident with these pre-jump plays.
They have so far, and they did it to start the game too. Slugger pre-jumped to pass from Pyro literally 15 seconds into the game, and it wasn't able to be connected, but it just shows the confidence that this Quinnipiac roster plays with, and it's panned out well so far, 4:40 into this game.
They have a little bit of time, and Mount St. Mary's can possibly find a go-home goal, or rather a go-into game 2 goal. McHayden to the backboard. It will be cleared out by Thwack as Quinnipiac look to get a late second goal to make this goal margin even wider, and will do just that. Every goal for Quinnipiac has been some combination of Thwack and Slugger as they get the third on the board with only 2 ticks left to go.
2 seconds, that'll mathematically wrap up things for game 1, Somber, and the Bobcats gonna lead 1-0 at the end of 5.
That ball touches turf. Quinnipiac get the job done in game 1. They open out the series strong as a coordinated celebration on screen. You love to see it. The chem really popping off for the Bobcats right now, but it's going to be a long series. We saw Ball State open out their series early and with a win, but we're not able to find a game win after that opening game. Hopefully it is not the same story for Quinnipiac here, and they can make quick work of Mount St. Mary's.
We'll wait and see. They swept Mount St. Mary's in the last season's tournament final, so looking to do the same thing tonight. They only allowed 2 shots on target out of the Mountaineers, so getting a heck of a defensive stance in game 1, and good midfield presence, only allowing the offense to generate 2 shots.
Yeah, they just seemed to do everything right. There was a lot of corner play. There wasn't anything really too threatening from outside your goal box to really have to worry too much about, but I'd like to see everyone get a little bit more activated as we do see McHayden go back into a traditional Fennec and fit in the dress code here for the lobby, as we now have everyone back in a Fennec, and now playing a little bit different and being able to feel a little bit more mechy as they're able to find a touch and a drop down pass to Fuzz, and maybe it was just the Ripper curse, as it is Mount St. Mary's on the board first in game 2.
McHayden off the ceiling, touching down for Fuzz. All 3 defenders commit, but 14 seconds in spells a lead for Mount St. Mary's. And back to your Scarab Ball comment earlier, Drexel might be the best team in the country in all Scarabs.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the country in regular cars. I don't know why they can't do it. Same hitbox with the Scarab. It just looks a little bit funny. So You know, I would love to see a all Scarab show match between Drexel and Akron and see if it's still the same result. If Drexel still is unbeatable to the Akron squad outside of a bracket, but Thwack, as I'm rambling about Scarab Ball here in a show match, they're able to get the equalizer here in their conference championship. They say, hey, stop talking about Scarabs. We got a game to play.
I don't know if Akron would agree to that. Knowing Drexel or Scarab ballers, I don't know if Akron would agree to get embarrassed if they had never played the Scarab before.
Hey, I've seen Milio and Oxy pull out some absolute concoctions. Pyro clean off the kickoff, gets the ground air dribble and is precise, finds the little adjustments and carries it through, then finish it off with a huge dunk against King Julian Quinnipiac. 2 quick goals here in game number 2.
What an opening quick minute. 3 goals in and about 50 seconds off the clock. The Bobcats lead 1 as the Mountaineers looking for a second here. King Julian a low 50, taking wide. Rebound also won't fall through. The defense will hold the line. Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers have to go back on defense.
Caden wanted to make that extension play, but it will be picked up by King Julian. And Slugger gonna just be a presence here, trying to force this one, and does find nice touchdown, but Fuzz will be there to catch. Pyro quick to the challenge. King Julian out of the corner, playing with a little bit of space granted by the Quinnipiac offense here. Slugger out of the corner will grab some boost. Pyro at the midfield to keep this one in the blue half. A little bit of a whifty 50. Cleanup play from Slugger. Trying to stick with it and find Thwack off the pre-jump. Thwack goes a little high, does get a bump, and McHayden will find a touch downfield to Fuzz. Counterattack is on here for Mount St. Mary's, but Pyro, the Cucks are pitched straight up, will make it tough to read for both sides. Favorable 50 for Mount St. Mary's, and clear out over to Thwack. Tried to get the redirect, but Pyro will be there to clear that one out.
3:05 to go on the clock here in game 2. Mount St. Mary's still trailing by just 1, but again, they're giving up 2 in a row here towards Quinnipiac. So things have to change offensively for Mount St. Mary's. They're going to have any chance to deal with the pressure that Quinnipiac continues to create in this series and the pressure that's been brought upon them defensively.
Mount St. Mary's on that last attack by Quinnipiac had all 3 players on a pre-jump, I believe, or excuse me, 2 players on a pre-jump and 1 on the backboard ready to jump as well. So maybe playing a little bit shaken here after giving up 2 straight and not being able to find as many looks as you probably would like to have here throughout the opening 2 games, as it has been all Quinnipiac, and they look to put 1 more on the board. Fuzz will find a clear downfield and touch over 1, but Slugger with boost and plenty of space here on the backboard will find it over to Pyro. Big team pinch downfield, return fire by McHayden. King Julian almost got the read, shot ripped. King Julian could have been there for the secure, but no boost and falling, could not find the car control to get that one in for goal number 2.
Slugger off the right wall here, transition in hand here for Quinnipiac, and Sauber 2-minute warning in game 2. What's done better in game 2 from Mount St. Mary's compared to game 1?
I feel like they're just not getting outpaced. Quinnipiac played really fast at the midfield, and we're now able to get these clears downfield by Mount St. Mary's and have a man to follow, so we're not just playing boomer ball and being contained to our own half. Mount St. Mary's is doing a real good job of starting to play with a little bit more pace of their own. They're finding the possession plays when they can have them. They're going early. They're forcing awkward touches out of Quinnipiac as well. But still down by 1, the pace adjustment is not going to be enough. You're going to need to find some better offensive chances as well.
I agree. 100%. And Quinnipiac coming into this series, obviously heavy favorites. In a third attempt there, no good. 1 minute to go. Mount St. Mary's, the Mountaineers need a 1 in the next 65 seconds. Delta no 2 deficit will face the Mountaineers going into game 3.
Oh, McHayden wanted to pass out to the corner, but ends up putting it just right on top of the hood of King Julian, and will now have to be a full reset defensively here for the Mountaineers. And Whack out of the corner has Pyro to lead the charge and will go on a full rotate back and end up messing up their speed flip and will end up just sticking in the play anyways. Quinnipiac, even on their miss flips and their missed timings, they're able to find plays down the pitch. Pyro with a shot on target. McHayden now a little bit awkward, has to force the issue, gets the skim touch put this one to the opposite corner. Fuzz with a clear downfield. Slugger off the respawn, going to return fire. Finds the ceiling and a favorable bounce down to King Julian. McHayden now. Infield pass. Wanted to find King Julian back at the midfield, but it will now be Slugger with a sidewall read. Gets to put it into the corner. Fuzz with a touch to delay. Thwack now with a big pinch of 50 up. King Julian has one more good look. McHayden will have to keep this one alive. Gonna be Thwack off the backboard. Has a ceiling reset. Wants the dunk down. Fuzz with a dunk of his own. Slugger with a great save. This one bouncing out of the corner. McHayden, one more touch needed, and he finds it, but it does touch the ground, and Quinnipiac will pull away with a game number 2 despite the late game heroics.
Mount St. Mary's almost at the end there too. Had a look at the buzzer. Couldn't put it away. Quinnipiac 2-0 going into game 3.
Buzz had such a great shot, and the save coming out from Slugger. It's their only one on the board, but they made it count. Absolutely elite defense coming out late game. You know that a tie ball game is something you do not want to see, especially with the way Mount St. Mary's contained you in that last 4 minutes of gameplay. Both teams scoreless outside of the opening minute, but especially with Quinnipiac, they had a lot more opportunities, and Mount St. Mary's was able to shut that down. Now heading into game 3, a lot of momentum will be on the side of Quinnipiac, but if Mount St. Mary's can go out to an early lead and play defense and kind of turtle up and stonewall like they did to finish that game out, it could be a different ball game here for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I mean, again, this ball game is still far from over. You know, for Mount St. Mary's, it's only 0-2, so it's very, not over yet, but you've got to be able to win here in game 3. I think if they lose this, it is very likely over.
Yeah, this is must win for Mount St. Mary's, and they definitely have it in them, and it's not going to take late game heroics. It's going to need to just be some great shooting and not overcommitting, as Fuzz is able to get back in time and beat out Slugger on that foot race. Pyro to the skies has Slugger back down off the backboard. They wanted to go, but King Julian will be there to clean up the play. McHayden now downfield out of the corner, finds 2 touches, had Fuzz at the midfield, but could not find it through. And early opportunities for Mount St. Mary's almost turning into goal scoring opportunities, but Quinnipiac still quick on the attack and having to deal with that.
King Julian up high pop there. The first minute coming to a close. No early goals in the first frame here in game 3. We saw 3 in the first minute of game 2. Now here in game 3, a very slow start offensively. Both teams locking in defensively as well. No kind of early really easy opportunities that we saw last game, share the similar story in game 3, but a chance there broken up as the defense holds off.
I think the better takeaway for Mount St. Mary's is you have not conceded 2 goals in the opening minute. You have been able to play good defense off the rip. You've had some good looks of your own. You're forcing Quinnipiac to respect you a little bit more. You've earned that right. You've shown out of the latter half of last game that you can start to hang. You've kind of dialed this in. Oh, just off target, and Thwack will be back in time for the cleanup play against Fuzz. Infield pass to Slugger, will find a shot, but McHayden able to clear that one through. And Mount St. Mary's quick transition, offense to defense. They are now starting to click here and heating up in the series.
Game 3, getting 2 minutes into the clock, and Quinnipiac hasn't really seen its similar success early on in games 1 and 2 that they did, but it's a testament to Mount St. Mary's being able to adjust, obviously, and their defense is broken into the series finally. It took them 10 minutes, but now your offense has to show up, and your defense is giving you a chance to win here.
McHayden, big clear downfield, but no boost to follow. Will be Slugger. Took a little bit too long and found a bounce a little bit dangerously. But Thwack will be there on the back line with a quick flick to try to beat out Fuzz. Does get the bump on the play. McHayden to beat out 1v1 against Pyro. Pyro does not get the read, but neither does McHayden. The shot goes wide. Pyro now on the counter attack. Misflip there, but will still be in the play. Thwack there to play cleanup in the corner against King Julian. Plays patient, finds a good 50. Fuzz will launch that one down the pitch, and we now approach 2 minutes left here. Still scoreless between these two squads. Throwing haymakers when you have the opportunity, but defense has been the name of the game here in game number 3.
2:05 to go. Pyro off the wing, no good. Fuzz off the save. Mount St. Mary's defense still holding up well. Sombred, their defense just keeps keeping them in this series, giving the offense a chance to win, but the offense just can't come through with the play of their own.
A great passing play between Slugger and Pyro. Thwack cannot find the go-ahead on the cleanup play. Fuzz would win out the foot race on the sidewall, but no boost to their name means they will get beat by Thwack, who's quick off the sidewall, has Pyro at the midfield. McHayden does great to intercept that passing play. One more touch out of the corner. Pyro puts it dangerously. King Julian just off target on the shot, puts it in the corner. Pyro now still on the ball, playing through a 50. King Julian on a rotation back, leaves it for Fuzz to take care of. He is now trying to read Thwack and forces it low to a teammate in McHayden. Thwack, big clear downfield. Pyro on the pre-jump, will find the touch to the backboard. Fuzz is up and does have to make the read. Does just that. McHayden, low boost and slow on the rotation through. Right now, Quinnipiac trying to turn on the pressure cooker. Under a minute remaining now. They are trying to dial up some offense.
Pyro back to midfield, has no help. McHayden a dunk, but the save is made again from McHayden. 48 seconds ago, we're still tied at nil, Sombers. Mount St. Mary's have held off for 4 minutes, but the offense has had no looks.
Mount St. Mary's is doing well to follow up these clears downfield, but it just seems that there's always someone at the midfield stripe to delay the attack, allow their team for Quinnipiac to come back and play defense comfortably. You need to try to force some uncomfortable mistakes, and that one is going to be uncomfortable for the defense of Mount St. Mary's. Pyro off target on the cleanup. The slugger will have one more good look. Full boost, bumped off the play, almost gets the read off the bump, but McHayden will carry this one to the midfield stripe. Big 50-50 win by Pyro. Here on the blue half, Thwack into the corner. Needs one more touch. Fuzz will put this one to the sidewall. Slugger midfield. Thwack is there. It goes up and off the wall. And Julian keeps it alive. Thwack will play for overtime. And we got a 0-0 ball game with golden goal.
Big game, too, for Mount St. Mary's to score this next goal. And Mount St. Mary's have to score, or else this series is likely over.
Absolutely. Pyro. Big clear downfield. Met immediately, though, by McHayden. Thwack wants to put one on target. Pre-flip into the corner. We'll find a touch out, but King Julian to receive. Pyro, another attempt into the blue corner, but met by a defender by Mount St. Mary's. Two combined. Slugger will be credited with the save, and Pyro with a double jump shot, and that is how we end it. 31 seconds in, and a counter attack for the ages for Quinnipiac to go ahead and seal this one up. 3-0 in the series, putting this one on reverse sweep watch for Mount St. Mary's.
That's just tragic stuff for the Mountaineers. Your defense holds off for 5.5 minutes and doesn't allow any goals, but the offense comes up short and goes 0 for 6 in a pivotal must-win game.
Yeah, it is going to be near impossible to reverse sweep Quinnipiac right now. Mount St. Mary's did everything right besides put a goal up. If one of their, I believe it was 6 shots, one of their 6 shots was able to fall, that would have gone in your favor, and you would have been able to play with a little bit of momentum here heading into game 4, only being down 2-1 in the series. But now you have to win 4 straight against the Quinnipiac squad that you have seemingly not been able to figure out.
Game 4 underway. Quinnipiac can lock this series in and punch their ticket to the CCS championships with a win tonight.
Big touch out of Pyro, playing this one low and slow, wants the dribble play, gets McHayden to bite, and it's going to be a flick straight to the crossbar. Thwack able to keep it alive in the blue corner, but not able to find a goal yet. Boink opportunity for Pyro, taken away by Fuzz, and a big dunk coming out by Mount St. Mary's will find us back into the yellow half. Pyro again wants to try to go off the sidewall, ends up getting a demo, now starved out is their teammate. King Julian wanted the back pass, but ends up going over the head of McFadden, but does find Fuzz instead. Pyro, one more touch, does not find it downfield to a teammate. All 3 go for Quinnipiac to combine for that save. Thwack is the one credited. The defense early here from both squads, looking to be another slugfest like what we saw in game number 3.
And a quick hole opens up. King Julian able to make it 1-0, and Quinnipiac's defense just slightly fell apart. Mount St. Mary's finally able to capitalize off a mistake.
Pyro hit that little stutter, did not want to fall off the post and lose their jump, but ends up losing all their momentum instead and could not make the extension play to the center of net. Good on Mount St. Mary's to find a goal. It may be a minute or so late, but they do break the drought. Finally find themselves on the scoreboard yet again. Pyro burns through a lot of boost, has Slugger off the ceiling. One of the cheeky little pre-jump passing play. Thwack to deny the dribble from Fuzz. King Julian to the backboard who were up for Quinnipiac. Going to be a little bit spread out defensively here, but a favorable 50 down back to Thwack. Will put this one firmly in the blue corner, and Quinnipiac look to go to work yet again on offense.
And Julian over one has no help down low, though. Slugger will hold off for now in the midfield. Quinnipiac just trying to find one to get this game back to level and find their way to win and get this series over with in 4 games and head on back to the tournament for the second time in program history.
Slugger with a big clear out, and Pyro was able to play that very patiently as Mount St. Mary's was trying to pre-jump the play. A ball falling from the ceiling will be hard to meet in the skies. Big demo coming out from Mount St. Mary's, but will not stall the attack. Slugger looking for a bump of their own. McHayden will survive the pressure, but it's right back into the hands of Pyro. Buzz now on the back line, playing it low and slow. Does not have an immediate threat, but does have to flick late. Whack now. Looking to beat out King Julian. Favorable 50 for Quinnipiac. Fuzz is up, gets dusted by Pyro, and that one is off the bumper and in. 2:35, and we got a tie ball game here.
Pyro from right field, able to find it. Go one. The Bobcats just north of the halfway mark. Somber back to level again. Mount St. Mary's. Now their season on the line. They got to win.
And they've done well enough to this point to stave off the offense and stave off the pressure put on by Quinnipiac, but finally that time it breaks through by a well-placed shot by Pyro. Buzz looking to be quick on the response to put themselves back up, but I believe the last time we saw this Mount St. Mary's squad leading was early on in game number 2, where they ultimately fell. I believe it was 3-1 the final scoreline. Big demo does come out on Fuzz. We'll leave it to Pyro now across the pitch. They grab some boost and just look to rotate back and play some time as they feel confident in their late game ability. Big 50 win. Forces Mount St. Mary's. This one looked to be dropped in the bucket as a team bump comes out, but Pyro does make the play on the back line to keep that one out from being the second goal, the go-ahead for Mount St. Mary's.
140 to go here in game number 4 as Mount St. Mary's again to have to score, keep their season alive and not make it last 5 extra minutes if they can. Is now at this point in the series, Somber, what do you do if you're Mount St. Mary's? Your back's against the wall, minute 30 to go, and you need to score.
I think they're doing a lot right now. They're dealing with the pressure well. You let in that one goal by Pyro, and you were able to get a hand on it, but mainly just keeping your rotations clean and making sure you have resources across the board. Right now, King Julian was lone man in net with 2 on backboard on low boost, still on low boost. Maybe a little bit better resource management late game as we head into the final minute. But Mount St. Mary's are doing a lot right. They're playing solid defense. Just can't seem to escape their own half right now. Need one breakaway play, and this may be it. It is going to be a tap-in from McHayden as Mount St. Mary's go up late game against Quinnipiac. Look to fend off the sweep.
Yeah, that's a big goal too for Mount St. Mary's. Gives your game offense potentially one more game in 51 seconds. Now you got to hold off on defense.
Just need to get the job done. Bearable kickoff for Quinnipiac as Slugger quick to the attack, able to find a 50 there. King Julian, soft touch, but Thwack is there to intercept the passing play. Fuzz to keep it alive in the yellow half here of the Bobcats. Pyro, the big 50-50, read by Slugger. Pyro downfield will be able to catch and pop this one to the backboard, and it skirts the crossbar and finds its way in. Quinnipiac is inevitable right now.
Yeah, Mount St. Mary's, you can't have that, Somber. Your defense gives up a goal in a crucial moment. Your season on the line. You're up 1 with under a minute to go, and it just all comes crashing down.
Yeah, 26 seconds and a kickoff. This one, it could be favorable for Mount St. Mary's. A nice pop by Pyro will find Thwack down the pitch. They play with possession and a flip reset to push the issue downfield. Pyro is committed up. Everyone a little bit too far pushed for Quinnipiac as they will find their way back to home and have to play some defense now as Slugger puts this one into the corner. High bounce. Fuzz could not get the read. Slugger downfield has the 1v1, gets the touch over the top, lines up the double, finds it through, and Slugger will complete the sweep with a comeback win for Quinnipiac.
And on 0 seconds, Slugger ends the season at Mount St. Mary's and punches the ticket to the tournament.
GG's all around. Quinnipiac shout out to Slugger coming through with triple zeros on the board, had the ice to get it done for the Bobcats. And well played by Mount St. Mary's. Tough contest in game 3 and 4. But again, Quinnipiac just seemingly inevitable in this conference, come out as champions once again.
And Mount St. Mary's really feel like they could have tied the series 2-all. I mean, the last 10 minutes, they played pretty good. Their defense held perfect for 5.5 minutes, and the offense went cold, couldn't score. Then this game, you had a lead under a minute to go, and then you kind of sold at the end. But those two games, you get one more goal, and it's all of a sudden tied going into game 5.
Yeah, could have been a completely different story. We could be heading into game 5, game 6 if Mount St. Mary's was able to get just a singular goal or not let in a singular goal more. But that's how the cookie crumbles. Quinnipiac, they find their way back to the national championship. I'm going to be excited for their bracket run. And yeah, a great way to wrap out their season. They found a hot streak and they continued it through. They have been able to sweep through their conference playoffs and now find themselves back in the top 64 as an upper seed.
Quinnipiac will head on to the CCS championships, where I personally believe there'll be a 14 or a 15 seed, but we'll have to wait and see what the committee thinks they're going to draw. But we'll see you guys back after the break for NJIT versus UMBC.